I've been working, filling up a day planner for 2026, 2026. Oh, you can see it on the back there. For 2026, with these kind of little reminders each day on what we want to do. And it's only partly, I guess we would say, like kind of a funny joke, because what are we going to do on any of the days this year? We're going to look at the context in which we find ourselves, and we're going to do actions we value. And so it starts out with do actions I value on January 1st. And of course, on January 2nd, it says keep doing actions I value. On January 3rd, have feelings while doing actions I value. On January 4th, be kind to myself when I have thoughts and feelings and other brain stuff while exploring life. And it goes from there. And I say it's only partly a joke, because of course maybe it brings a smile uh, to somebody's face as they're reading through it, but also it's very accurate, and of course it expands from there. So it's been really enjoyable to go through and add in variations of that on the days, because of course when we start to explore having experiences while doing actions we value, questions come up and challenges come up that we run into. And so the day planner naturally expands from that first day of do actions I value. Of course, that's something we'd want to do, and that makes sense. But then it continues to expand on that concept, make it more specific, but then also dive into the kinds of questions that would come up as somebody starts to work on that. Like, how can I know what I value? But also, what if I don't need to know what I value? So I'm finding a neat way to explore mental health concepts throughout a full year. And that, what I'll do is, so I'll complete it. It should be possible to complete it this week. So we have this kind of uh, one of a kind, mental health and fitness exploration planner for a year. And then I'll try to auction it off. I have to add an auction plugin to my website, but then so keep an eye out for that this week if it's something you'd be interested in. It's a neat thing to flip through, I find. Like, I find it fun to flip through, but then also it's very practical, because we can get so caught up in we need some kind of special solutions and special plans and things like that. But on each day, having an opportunity to bring ourselves back to the question of, given the context in which I find myself today, what do I value giving my time and energy to, will remain a useful question for all of us for the 361 days or 62 days, depending on how you're counting it, left to go. Welcome, everybody, dropping in. Thank you so much for the Happy New Year's wishes. Happy New Year's to you all, too. Hey, everybody. Grace, Vishwajit, Mr. Mastodon Farm, welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the help in the chat already. Everybody, let's get into it. So, of course, if you're new, we're gonna get into questions. We're gonna explore around mental health and fitness and recovery. We're going to approach it from a peer support perspective. So, yeah, what have I found helpful on my adventures? What have community members found helpful on their adventures of having a squishy urge blob in their skulls? Emmy Gio, Happy New Year to you too. So when thoughts are sticky, and mind wants to ruminate, how do we focus our attention to the present without using distraction? So if thoughts are sticky, like the thought is sticking to the pan, and you're like frying up some thoughts, that usually points to actually some compulsions that we might be doing, or some unhelpful beliefs that we might be holding on to, some goals that we're pursuing that aren't actually useful. Like, for instance, if somebody sets a goal of feeling clean or feeling real or feeling correctly, perfectly in love with their partner or something like that, and that's their goal, and they want to have that feeling, then it's completely natural that the brain is going to like keep on checking for that. And if they don't feel right and perfect, then that's going to feel sticky because it's wrong. But that's not the thought being sticky, that's the goal that we set. So we basically said to the brain, hey, we've got to make sure we feel clean, or we've got to make sure we feel real. And the helpful brain is like, okay, oh no, I don't feel real. What is real? And it's going to just feel wrong and unreal. But we started that by choosing a goal to get that certain clean feeling. So that'd be one of the first things I'd look at there. If you're finding thoughts are sticky, well, why is that thought sticky? Uh, what kinds of goals are you setting around that? And one of the ways that would tip me off that there's a goal there is because why does it matter if the thought is sticky? If there's a thought there and we don't have a problem with that, there's no issue. But it suggests there's something you see as wrong with that. And so there's probably a goal there that might not be so helpful. When you say the mind wants to ruminate, that's also, I find it really helpful to see, like, we are the ones who do the ruminating. Like, even right now, right, I could choose what I spend time and energy on my head. I could choose what I spend time and energy giving my attention to right now. This goes to the other question you asked about what's the difference between attention, control, and distraction. It's not distraction for me, for instance, to give my attention to the live stream right now. Right? There's many things around me. So would you say I'm distracting myself from choosing to give my time and energy to something I value? If it feels like distraction, again, that probably suggests there's some kind of goal there. Like I think it's like an air conditioner. I've never actually turned it on, sitting over here behind the camera. If my goal in life was to never be attacked by sentient air conditioner robots, this might feel like distraction to be talking to you right now because the bad, scary robot is over here behind the camera. So shouldn't I focus on it and watch it and make sure it doesn't attack me? And am I distracting myself and ignoring danger by giving my attention here? But this is what I value doing. I do not value trying to get certainty that the air conditioner won't turn into a sentient robot and attack me. When you feel like you're distracting yourself from a thought, what kind of goals do you have there around the topic of that thought and around what you actually want to do in the present? Because we live in the present. So doing things in the present and living our lives is never a distraction. Doing the stuff up here, the time traveling in our head, that is a distraction. Hello to everybody stopping in the chat. Fran, we got people from Egypt, Germany. The Coco Mango. Thanks for watching the video on judgments and judging things. They said, it really helped me reflect on what judgments I'd prefer to keep and which don't really seem great to me anymore. Yeah, enjoy exploring that. It's so useful to recognize that when going around judging all of these things, uh, that judgment just naturally is going to create all sorts of difficult experiences that, yeah, we might react to with compulsions. if we want to get ahead of the compulsions, and this relates to things we might ruminate on too, we can just cut out the judgments and not bring up those feelings that we try to fix and control with the compulsions. Jordan, what are your goals for this next year? I wouldn't say I have specific goals yet, because I'm exploring those. And even I took some time yesterday to explore some goals around what I'll do with social media, with videos and stuff like that this year. And so over the next couple of days, I'm exploring what the goals are, and then I'll start to look at, okay, then each month, what are the specific actions that I want to do to go in that direction. But I was thinking about, yeah, even broadly. So when I was sitting down to look at what kinds of videos and things like that I want to make this year, I identify some values. So I find it useful to look for when we're doing something, yeah, social media, business wise, whatever it might be. I usually suggest people pick 3 values. I haven't nailed down exactly which 3 values I'm going to align everything with this year, but this weekend I'll probably sort it out. And so too, I enjoy that we have this discussion this morning, because I mean this is a big. How do I want to practice care, and what do I want to give, and how do we want to grow as a community, or navigate the world as a community in the next year? It's something I think about around this stuff. And so, yeah, I do think one of the goals that I'm thinking, or one of the directions, we'll say right now, that I want to explore is what do I want to grow and study and learn to share with the community. It's a really, I mean, it's something really special, and something that I take seriously, that we have this opportunity to explore mental health and fitness skills and changes and recovery together. So in the year ahead, I want to pick some specific goals around skills or subjects that I'll develop further in my practice so that I can share it with the community. And I haven't picked exactly what those are yet, but I think that'll definitely be one of the directions. So what am I learning and exploring that then I can share, and share with the community that will support the community? Yeah, what kind of goals or directions is everybody exploring this year? Jane in Iowa. Hello, Jane. Jane said, I'm currently reading your book, halfway through, finding it helpful, as well as your videos. Thank you and Happy New Year. Jane, Happy New Year to you too. Enjoy doing the exercises in the book. If you have any questions as you're going through the exercises, yeah, always feel free to ask. Louise, hello. And Ignaocat. Christina, good morning. Ignaocat, so what's the topic? So we explore recovery from mental health challenges and proactively building mental health and fitness skills. We look at the changes and practices involved with learning how to have difficult experiences while giving time and energy to things that we value. When we're exploring stuff like that, I think this is something I wanted to talk about this morning, because there is a lot of stuff happening in the world. There may be a lot of stuff happening in your own life. Even as you're thinking of New Year's goals, there can often be a tendency to focus on, what do I dislike? What do I want to fix? And with all of these things, whether you're looking at the whole world, uh, a smaller piece of geography in the world, or you're looking at your body or just your brain, we have a tendency to go to what we want to fix and what we dislike. The problem is, if success depends on defeating an enemy, we've got to keep the enemy around so that we can keep going after success. Or if we do fix the enemy, we just have to get another one because we're building a framework for success and happiness that depends on fixing a problem. That is not useful. That is one of the kind of, I'd say, key challenges that our current mental health and fitness system creates. Excuse me. Because it's focused around problems, right? Disorders. It creates this idea that I've got to fix this thing in my head. But if you want to fix the thing in your head, you make that unwanted thing the center and focus of not only your practice, but potentially your identity. It's not very useful if we want to actually leave it behind. In the year ahead, if you're looking at mental health and fitness goals, also if you're looking at business and personal development goals, if you're looking at, I don't know what we would call it, how to get engaged with challenges that the world is facing goals, I'd strongly recommend basing that around the things we want to keep and grow. Because then we can have a sustainable practice. Then the motivation doesn't disappear because the focus around building and growing something can stay. If we focus around fixing a problem, that's often when, say, with mental health, for example, we'll have a very up and down cycle. Because if we're only, say, developing mental health and fitness skills and recovery skills around things we hate, when the things we hate aren't there, we tend to drop the useful practices. We'll hear people do that all the time with things like meditation, where they start meditating because they want to clean away an emotion. That's not what meditation is for. But then they will stop meditating because then the experience they hate goes away. But meditation isn't for cleaning away things we dislike. It's also a wonderful practice to just have in our lives consistently. So we want to have a goal for it that does not depend on a thing we hate, because then we have to keep bringing the thing we hate back in so that we'll do the useful practice. When you're planning goals this year, build them around things you want to keep in your life. It can help us be way more sustainable and actually achieve our goals, but then we can keep on running with them. Hello there. I am Alice. You said I'm exploring my resistance, reparenting myself, learning how to nudge myself forward without sounding cliche or belittling. It's difficult. Yeah, it is difficult. When these things are difficult, a question I always come back to, like I find really helpful, always is asking, how can I make it easy? Because when we see these things that are difficult, right, even if you're thinking of, doing things differently than we might have in the past. In the past, we might have simply tried to force through something difficult. But what if there are totally different ways of doing that difficult thing? What if it's okay for it to be easy? But what would need to change? What supports would need to be in place to make it easy? So the question of make it easy sometimes sounds, initially you might think, oh, but I don't need it to be easy. I'm building skills. If we're looking at how to make something easy, it's still going to involve a lot of changes and development of skills. That's often the really useful work, because it's okay for it to be easy. Yeah, because we don't have to get hooked on like chasing an enemy. We don't have to be like, I'm gonna go do this really difficult thing again and again and again and again. Why do we believe we need to chase that really difficult, uncomfortable experience again and again? Nancy Adath, I do not know what your question. It sounds like there's so much information and context behind your question there. I could not give you any kind of answer, but I believe you have asked about this before. And so, yeah, it would be best to explore this kind of question with whether it's a therapist or, yeah, a lawyer that you're working with or something like that. Infinity Tech 100. That sounds like a really amazing piece of technology. Said, please talk about dealing with going crazy slash mental health OCD. I assume you're talking about the fear of going crazy, where you start to do a lot of compulsions around the fear of psychosis, developing schizophrenia, etc. It is like any other health anxiety that we'd start doing compulsions around. I find it really useful to look at what the feared consequences. That's probably going to help you see where to do the kind of ERP and ACT exercises. So, for example, if somebody, so a really common uh, kind of compulsion that comes up with this is that somebody might be avoiding dating because they want to get certainty first that they're not going to lose their mind because they're afraid if they have a psychotic episode while they're on a date, that's going to blow up their chance at love, and that person's going to tell everybody, and then it's just going to be they'll never go on a date again. And so there we see that the issue is not actually the fear of psychosis. The issue is the fear of being judged by others and the impact it would have on the things they want to do in life. It's more about social anxiety. It's more about wanting to control, the possibility of having a family, of finding love, and things like that. So usually when somebody brings up mental health OCD, fear of psychosis OCD, things like that, it can really help to see that it's not about that. That is just the way the brain is trying to control and get certainty to protect something else. So there'd be a step there to figure out what that other thing is. And the reason I bring that up is because the ERP or ACT exercises are going to involve doing the other thing. If we look at a classic ERP exercise, might be to watch a TV show or read a news article about some kind of illness that you're afraid of, and then go on a date. Avoiding, and that's just an example. It could be anything, right? It might be somebody wants to get certainty about this so it doesn't mess up their business career. They might be avoiding social media because they're afraid, oh, I don't want to go online. And then what if I, have some kind of episode and I post all sorts of things and then everybody hates me? So they might be avoiding stuff. They might be avoiding social events. It's whatever you're trying to control or whatever that feared outcome is, that is going to be where the exercises are going to be. And it's going to be about doing more of that, whatever you fear this would impact. So the way out is going to be living your life. Macbetha said, in RJ, how do you work with the root cause? I think mine is the fear of social judgment of my girlfriend's past and maybe some purity beliefs. Also, how do you tell if you don't love anymore when you got OCD? So no, the feared consequence is something so you would lose. So even notice there, you're still saying the judgments about your girlfriend's past. There's nothing wrong with your girlfriend's past. What's the issue? Like it really helps with retroactive jealousy to see that's a personal insecurity. So what's the thing you're afraid of losing? Why is this something that you're trying to get clean? One of the things that can be really helpful with retroactive jealousy, it is difficult for me to say that right now. Retroactive jealousy, it does sound like a piece of technology. So with your retroactive jealousy drive, it can really help to see it as contamination OCD. And this relates to the question you asked about love as well. Because if somebody said, oh, well, when you have contamination OCD, how do you know if something is clean? And right away, you can see we're not going to be checking um, a particular feeling because we know the brain is going to tell us that feeling is wrong. If we were checking with our brains and you figure across anything you could think of, how do I know it's clean? How do I know I'm real? How do I know the world is real? How do I know I'm not losing my mind? How do I know that I'm healthy? How do I know I'm in love? And so on. The brain will contaminate it, right? So that we keep on doing the compulsions. Uh, so, yeah, if somebody came to you and said, look, I have contamination OCD, I always feel contaminated, how would they know if something is clean? Nina said, I was wondering if you could talk about phone addiction. Sometimes I feel like I have a lot of fun and find useful things when scrolling, like recipes, tips, but it takes so much time in my life. Yes, this is a topic I love. The I don't know if you're familiar with it. The first exercise in my book, in You Are Not a Rock, and the Mind Workout, it's in the introduction before we even get into the book, is learning how to feel the urge to check our phones and not check them. It is such a phenomenal practice to explore when we're looking at any other mental health and fitness exercise. When we're looking at cutting out compulsions around anything else, it's going to be the exact same fundamental skill. Having a feeling, having that pressure, and having the brain tell you either there's something really scary, we've got to check it, but also there's something really good. Let's go scroll. Maybe we'll find a useful tip or a recipe. Noticing that and making a choice that's more useful. So one thing, it's always going to have something that seems, this is for everybody, whatever compulsion we're talking about today, the brain is always going to have a rational sounding reason to do it. I like to say that when we're learning mental health and fitness skills, when we're learning how to do things that are actually useful to us, it's going to be unreasonable. And that's because the brain will have a very rational sounding reason to do the compulsion. So it's always going to tell you, hey, why don't you just check your phone? There could be something really good. You could find something amazing. Remember, we found amazing things before. Let's just go scrolling. And it'll just keep demanding that and demanding that. Or it could be a fear. Like, if you don't check that right now, you're going to miss something really important and it's going to cause you to lose something in your life. And we're like, well, I don't want to lose that. I can't risk that. I better go check. A big support is to set values around how we want to spend our time and energy in life. When we go into any moment with an intention around what we're going to do, around the valued actions that we'll do, it becomes much easier to notice the pressure from the brain to do a compulsion, but instead choose the valued action. If we haven't set a direction that we want to go, then whenever our brains throw up any kind of urge, we tend to chase after it because it gives us some certainty. Life is this big wilderness. And when we go into the wilderness without a compass direction, yeah, we're very naturally pulled in any direction because the brain's like, hey, let's go look under that rock. Maybe there's treasure under there. But then we flip it over and when there isn't, and then the brain's like, well, but look, there's a log over there. Let's go look under that log. And we just follow the brain around and we get lost in the forest. One of the ways you can practice cutting out the compulsions around your phone is you pick like an hour or an activity you're going to do later today and set an action that you want to give time and energy to. Like saying, if I was going out later, I might say, okay, on this walk, I'm not going to check my phone anywhere, any time, anywhere while I'm on this walk today. So what am I going to do instead? Well, I'm going to be on a walk. So maybe I'll say hello to trees. This is actually one of my favorite ones. I can see some trees just outside of my window. Then what happens is every time you notice the urge to like, hey, oh, maybe I should check my phone, or maybe what about this? What about that? Noticing it, oh, I do feel the urge to check my phone right now. Nothing wrong with that. But on this walk, what I actually value giving my time and energy to is saying hello to some trees. So where's the tree right now? I'd rather give my attention to a tree than give my attention to my phone. And you practice that. Then in another situation, maybe while you're alone, you may feel like, oh, I've got nothing to do. I'm gonna, just scroll or something like that. But again, choosing what do you want to give time and energy to. Saying, look, during this next hour while I'm home on my own, I'm not going to check my phone. So I'm gonna, one, put my phone somewhere else. I could still go and get it, but there's something I want to write, there's something I want to read. I'm going to grab this book. I'm going to practice giving my attention to a book, like a real physical book, instead of scrolling through stuff. There will be times when it could be useful to use our phones. And so that's why, I don't know if you caught it earlier, I was talking about setting values around social media. I find it really helpful to make social media for giving. So if I don't have something to give, right, if I don't have something to share on social media, I don't need to be there. Setting some clear values around how we use it really helps with stepping away, really helps with noticing the brain say, hey, let's go scroll right now. Asking, okay, but do I have something I want to share? Even if it's like sharing comments or sharing comments on a friend's post or something like that could be one of the things I want to give. But if I've already done that today, I don't need to be there. Another great support, because things like recipes and tips and stuff like that, I tie it to actions. I call this a bias to action. So absolutely, maybe we need a recipe to make something. But we're not in the business of just collecting recipes in some folder or Pinterest board just for the sake of collecting them. If I need to cook something and I need a recipe, then absolutely I'm going to go on to find that recipe and then I'm going to cook it. So there's a bias to action. I'm using social media to get a thing because I'm going to do an action right now. So if there is no action to do right now, I do not need to go on there like collecting random recipes and tips. It is a resource that we'll use for action. If you're just going on social media to collect tips and recipes or whatever random stuff, that's not an action. You're you're just a cog in the advertising wheel, and you don't have to be that. Those companies are making enough money without you running their advertising machine for them. So enjoy exploring that. It's a really great. Most people have a phone or two or three. They are fantastic ways to practice developing mental fitness skills. Alex, on the question of making it easy, you said immediately you just think impossible. I have no clue. I can't make it easy. Yeah, that's usually the place we start. That's why I actually find the question of how do I make it easy so it sounds easy. It sounds like a really simple thing, but it's not. If we take a challenge that just seems impossible and we say, okay, here's the challenge. You have to make it easy, that immediately puts us in a place of needing to consider things we haven't considered before, needing to do things in ways that we haven't done them before. And a lot of those will feel scary. So, yeah, ease is, I like to, as the new year's starting, I like to wish people an easy new year or wish them ease with whatever they're exploring this year. And yeah, that can sound like lazy or because less people like talk about goals and what are we going to accomplish this year. But if you can make things easy, that is an incredibly I want to say that's an incredibly skillful skill. You get what I mean? It's challenging. Brett, said how to approach switching from a freelance lifestyle to an 8 to 5 job. I have an opportunity for a really cool job, but going to such a structured routine without the freedom makes me anxious. Yeah, it's really natural. One that will fear getting stuck. Like stuckness is often a big challenge that people will run into. I used to run into fears around stuckness a lot, and it was great to explore. It, there can be many different ways you dive into, stuckness, but related to what we've been talking about with making it easy. A lot of the times when we look at a particular situation, the fears come from assumptions and beliefs that will automatically attach to it. And then we just think, oh, I can't be free in this situation, so we're just going to cut it out. And our brains tend to really like that, this kind of all or nothing. Like, oh, that's not like, where you can even see in how you've described it, like an 8 to 5 job isn't free, therefore it's a danger. But we don't know that, right? You may actually have more freedom than you have in a freelance lifestyle. It may look a little different sometimes, but it's not as straightforward, right? Because sometimes when people are working freelance and working 8 to 5 might seem very casual and easy because they're used to working from 8 to 10 every day. Or if there's been a lot of uncertainty in their freelance lifestyle, because that doesn't lead to a lot of freedom either if they're constantly having to chase projects and jobs and things like that, handling clients in all sorts of like complex situations. That's not necessarily freedom either. So it's not as clear cut as just saying like freelance lifestyle good, 8 to 5 job bad. Instead, if we take a step back and we say, look, there's something you find cool and interesting in this potential job. And there are probably some qualities of your current way of working that you enjoy. And so, similar to when we were asking the question of how do I make it easy, what is it going to involve to help you thrive in that 8 to 5 job, if it's something you want to do? And so, what are the very specific things objectively? Because then you can also look at whether you'd want to do it or not. Because, for instance, let's say, so I'll give you like a hypothetical example. Because you maybe there's an option between two different jobs. And one job, they throw an octopus at you every day. And in another job, they make you uh, be in meetings constantly. And so it's like, an 8 to 5 job, but it's like 5 hours of meetings every day. Which one do you actually not want to experience? Because some people may say, oh, you know what? Yeah, an octopus is kind of slimy, but I'm not allergic to octopuses. And there's maybe some more flexibility in the office at the octopus job than there is sitting in meetings for 5 hours each day in the other job. So even though the other job, if I just said, oh, well, this other job maybe on paper in a one sentence on a piece of paper sounds better. If I look at what I'm actually doing in the job that day, I'd actually take getting hit in the face with an octopus over sitting in meetings for 5 hours. Right? Hypothetically, potentially. That's why it's really useful to look at the specifics of it. And so objectively, what are the things that you really value? What are the deal breakers? Right? Things where you're like, well, I would never want to do that particular thing in a job. How can you, if there are aspects of the freelance lifestyle that you really enjoy, are you sure they're not present in the 8 to 5 job? That would be the thing I'd look at and find out. So yeah, whatever you decide to do, have fun with it. Prince Butt. So Prince Butt, you've asked about how to fix religious blasphemous thoughts. Are they thoughts about butts? And they said, can you make a separate video on it? But there's nothing different about it. So potentially we may one day make a video about it. But the question of how can you fix thoughts, like there you see, like that's the compulsion. There's nothing to fix about them. That hating on it is the same as somebody hating on contaminated feelings. Like, and that question is the same. How can I fix feeling contaminated? That's not the solution. That is the problem. You can have thoughts. So what are you attaching to the thoughts right now? You don't have to attach that meaning to them. If you want to fix and clean away blasphemous thoughts, the brain's going to keep throwing them up. If you've been trying to do things to clean away thoughts, it's going to keep on throwing them up. Yeah, and oh, as Mr. Mastodon Farm, as Dylan asked below, what would you do if you didn't have to fix them? Exactly. Philip said, how would you deal with the fear of being distracted, not understanding everything? For example, when I'm in a conversation or watching something, I sometimes get lost in the thought of not understanding. I think is the, yeah, that uncertainty is a thing we can have. And if we look at compulsions, you've probably heard me mention before, the compulsions are about getting certainty. When we're working on mental health and fitness skills, we are lifting uncertainty like we lift weights. The brain, and we can notice it in many different ways. You're going to notice the brain kind of want to go for certainty. And when it goes for certainty, just like if it was saying it wanted certainty we were clean, it's going to feel wrong. If it wanted certainty we're real, we're going to feel unreal. If it wants certainty we understand, we're immediately going to feel that we don't understand. I had a lot of compulsions around memory, and it would lead me to do lots of checking and even around things like, oh, do I understand this, or do I have the right number or something like that? And the result of that is that we just start to doubt it. But also, it really seemed that because I would always check and redo things, that my brain wouldn't remember. One of the biggest supports to developing my memory was to start to not check. And even one of the biggest supports to writing was starting to do, you may have heard me talk before about writing something once and sending it. It's been so useful to cut out the checking because it seemed that my brain would then like not have the answer or not get it right the first time because we were going to do it again and again and again anyway. When we remove the check, fascinatingly, we'll often get it. If we keep that check, so if we're like, I've got to keep checking to make sure I understand, we'll find that we don't understand it. Almost as though the brain knows, because then we'll keep on checking and checking, or knows, oh, I don't have to spend resources on understanding this because they're just going to do it again anyway. So, what if we approach not understanding as a kind of like a feeling like contamination? We'd be like, this doesn't feel right now, but I'm going to take a step forward anyway. So, what will help you take a step forward anyway with that kind of lack of understanding, that feeling of not knowing? So, going into something where you would have like a fear of being distracted, not understanding everything, it can really help to set some values, right? Here's what I'm going to do, here are the actions I'm going to do in this situation, and I'm going to do them with a possible feeling of not understanding. Some of those actions might also recognize that. Like if we said, you're not going to understand it. Like it's not even a thing you could achieve if you wanted to. what actions are you going to do? Just like I said, like, look, you cannot be clean. So what actions are you going to do anyway? That, because that goal, if the goal of I should understand things correctly remains, it's gonna keep creating a feeling of not understanding. So yeah, what would help you take steps forward there, Philip? Yeah, so Macbeth, so here on the retroactive jealousy question, I'd been asking about like what's the consequences. You said here, I guess that people, other men, will blame me for having a girlfriend with a past, think of me as a lesser man. Right? So you see that this has nothing to do with your girlfriend or her past. This is about why are you why do you believe that's a thing you need to control around other men? And why are you worried about the judgments of other men about you as a man? So, what kind of beliefs are you holding on to there about being a man? And you can see that this has nothing to do with your girlfriend. It's about you and other men. Stubby, good morning. And Samir, hello. Andrea, so what advice do you have for somatic OCD and irrational thoughts about breathing? I know the thoughts don't make sense, but they feel so real and hard to resist. So, yeah, it's going to be with any kind of fear that we're running into that it's going to feel real. So getting into kind of like arguing with it, like, oh, that's irrational, or oh, but this feeling is real, things like that. Like that's we're already in the compulsions. I didn't find it helpful at all to kind of try to dismiss things as rational, because I believed everything was real and yeah, would have real physical sensations. So I find it more useful to just operate on a basis of everything will feel totally real, uh, and we can take it as real. What we're going to explore changes around are actions. When we do actions that we value instead of doing the compulsions, it's going to feel risky. So, like we were just talking about, retroactive jealousy may seem like a different topic. But all of these things are about like things we fear losing, and then we do a lot of stuff to control them. And so, around somatic OCD and breathing as well, what are the fears there that, like, what's the consequence of it? Because, yeah, the brain is going to pressure you to control that because it's going to go, if you don't control this, we're going to lose this thing that we care about. That is the thing that we work on changing our relationship to, and changing our relationship with loss. So, yeah, what is the thing there that you're afraid of losing? And so we were going to say, okay, we're going to practice interacting with this fear of loss. Yeah, what would that involve? What are the things you fear will be impacted by, maybe not breathing, or in, whether it's in a social situation or something that you would lose out on if you stopped breathing. Those are actually the kinds of things that then we would build exercises around to do more of while having those wrong feelings. The Coco Mango said, a recurring thought I have is that this is not good enough. What if what I'm doing isn't enough? I need to do more to feel better. How would you go about that? Mm, it's great you brought up enough. It helped me to see that my brain would never say something was enough. That was what it was going to use in so many different situations. It's always going to say, that's not enough. We got to keep going. So, a lot of the work for us is to notice the brain doing that. It'll say, like, that's not enough. You've got to go chase that thing over there. And it's up to us to start to show it, no, this right here is where I want to be. So I call this keeping success close. The brain is always going to push off success. But then no matter how much we accomplish or how much we chase it, we're always going to feel terrible and it's not going to feel enough and is really exhausting and unpleasant. So the brain no longer gets to determine success. We have to determine success, and we're going to do it based on actions that we 100% control objectively today. That itself can feel quite wrong because we may be chasing some kind of abstract success concept. And then to say, no, today success is going for a walk. And today success is going for a walk, feeding myself 4 times well, and sharing some mental health adventures with everyone. And when I've done those, I'm successful. And I'm going to practice grabbing my brain because the brain in this is one of the scenarios where you really see the brain as like a dog. The brain's going to be pulling on the leash. I mean, we got to go over here. We got to go do this. I want to go sniff that. I've got to go check that. And I'm literally going to pick up the dog and put it down right here in the present where I'm actually doing the actions. This at first will seem risky. The benefit is that by doing those actions in the present, we will actually go to that place that the brain is chasing. We will end up there by doing actions today, right now, that are those steps of doing useful things. And the benefit of keeping the focus on them today is that then we enjoy them. We can feel successful today. If we celebrate being successful today, that does not take away from the future. It's not like we go, wow, I was so successful today, I never have to do anything again. No, we actually just want to do more because we're developing. I always think of it as kind of like an account of success that we then spend rather than seeing ourselves in a debt. If you constantly tell yourself that you're in a debt, that doesn't make you think like, oh, okay, I'm doing well and I want to do more. If we're constantly telling ourselves we're not doing enough, just like if you told that to another person, if you constantly told another person you're not doing enough, they're not like, gonna get better and want to do more. They're just gonna feel terrible and be demotivated and demoralized. When we practice success and celebrate it today, we have even more to spend tomorrow. We have more to give to ourselves and to others. So, yeah, how can you keep success close based on actions that you objectively control? Celebrate those. When the brain, as the dog that it is pulling at the leash, you're gonna have to pick it up and show it. Brain, I don't know what you're talking about with not doing enough. Here is what success looks like today, and I did it. I'm doing it right now. So this is great. And through that, we get to teach our brains what enoughness is. And slowly, sometimes, you'll notice it pulls a little less at the chain, at the leash, and it enjoys being in the present. Vishwajit, you said, is there a new book in the works? If yes, what's the timeline for its release? I don't know if you caught it. There's a one-of-a-kind day planner filled out with the things we're going to do every day of the year, like do actions that are useful, give time and energy to actions of value. So I'd say that is the next book. It's going to be up for, I'll put it up for auction on the Toolkit store later this week. I should wrap it up, but I guess I'll start sharing about it as I get it wrapped up, and then then we can start that. So there is that. There'll be a bunch of things this year, but I don't think it'll be like a self-help book. There's a deck of cards. There's 2 deck of cards that I've got almost ready to go. And so this year, I also got, I've been working on a jigsaw puzzle. I got a prototype of the puzzle delivered the other day. Haven't opened it yet. I'll do a video when I open it. So there'll be some items this year and some in-person events, some workshops. Right now, I'm excited about how we can do some things offline too. So that's one of the reasons for looking at things like the card decks. So they have like exercises and prompts that people can set their phones down, not be online. There are still some online courses and things like that on their way, but yeah, mostly this year it will probably that be that kind of stuff. There are some books in the works, but right now I think those kinds of things, some real physical and tangible things, some events that we can do in person. I think because we're going to this year too ahead, we're going to see more and more stuff, the more and more AI slop, and it's going to be increasingly important that we do things like that we do real human things. I think you're going to see a trend back to some physical things and doing some things offline. And so that's the reason for getting the card decks and things like that. But also, it fits with how we actually explore exercises and practices. And so, having something like a card deck where there can be an exercise on a card that somebody can do, or a prompt that can help guide their actions for that day, or that it can also get used in therapy and things like that, I think are neat things to explore. So, that's some of the stuff I've got on the way. But thanks for asking about books, Vishwajit. Oh, Heather, so you just got over a head cold and got COVID. Oh, I hope you're feeling well and recovering well. It is the season of flu. A lot of people are getting sick. Take care of your health right now, everybody. Oh, Sarah. Sarah Rose, you said, my body has adrenaline surges even though I ignore the thoughts and move forward with the valued actions. How can I help my body? So I noticed that you split up like the experiences here. There's a thing happening in your body and there is a thought. So even though I accept the thought and I move forward, my body has an experience. I find it useful to see that when we're talking about these experiences, we're talking about unwanted experiences. So it's not just going to be a thought. Yeah, absolutely. It makes sense. There's a physical experience. I'll have to say the nervous system takes time to catch up. Because, yeah, up here we have all sorts of, rational, executive functioning things going on where, like, I accept this thought. The body does not speak any language that you speak. So it's going to have a reaction. I noticed when I was working on skills, it was such a strange experience for the body because it used to be such a consistent rhythm of, yeah, we're going to get really anxious and then we're going to solve it with compulsions, and then we're going to feel good and then we'll get anxious again, and so then we start to cut out the compulsions and also start to do things that I had avoided in the past, uh, and practice liking them and celebrating them. My body didn't know what was going on because it was like, we're doing dangerous things, and shouldn't we be panicking? But we're not doing the things we used to do around uncomfortable physical feelings. So yeah, it would kind of have like panic attacks at random moments, just like it kind of didn't know what to do. That's an unwanted experience. So we're not just saying, oh, I'm accepting a topic of a thought. We are accepting uh, experiences which in the past we used to judge and control and try to avoid. And there'll be mental, there'll be emotional, there'll be physical. So when I talk about feelings, I like that in English we can say feeling, and that means emotion and physical sensation. I am 100% referring to very real physical sensations and very real emotions. But yeah, if we want to call them out separately, there's, yeah, all of the different things. You can have unwanted physical sensations, unwanted thoughts, unwanted emotions, unwanted images, unwanted voices, unwanted any other thing that we can possibly think of. And then it's us hating on it and trying to control it that exacerbates it. So yeah, if our bodies go into this like fight or flight mode, and we're like, there's nothing, we don't have to do this right now, it is going to be taking care of it. And this is one of the areas where I find it useful to see it like a dog. We can't explain to the dog that it no longer needs to be afraid in these situations. The dog's going to have a reaction. The brain, the nervous system, whatever you want to say, is going to have a reaction. And so it's up to us to show it that this is okay now with a lot of compassion, right? We can understand why it has that reaction because of experiences in the past. But now we're going to show it a new way of doing things. Mr. Gatsby, thank you for wishing everybody a good day. I hope you're having a fantastic day too. Infinity Tech said, how to get a hard copy of your book here in Dubai. Yeah, if you want, so there is an Arabic language version, which you could find through the internet. But then, yeah, if you're looking for the physical version, you could look for whichever would be available. So the Mind Workout is the title for the UK version, and You Are Not a Rock is the title for the North American version. So yeah, whatever bookstore you get books from, they'll probably. But yeah, if you search online for them, you'll be able to find it. Yeah, you might have to do some shipping to get it on over there. And Macbeth, so on the fear of being of what other men will think about you. You said you sure, but what to do with these other people would blame me things practically. Well, yeah, like why? I think I would look at what. Why do you want to do a thing with that? And so that's where you might look at kind of your ideas of masculinity and what you're feeling insecure about. Like why is that a thing that you care about? And then you would look at what else are you doing around that. So always the reason we look at the feared consequence is because we're often doing lots of things in our lives to try to control that. So the thing I would ask somebody there when they brought that up is what else do you do in your life to try to control perceptions of masculinity and try to control what other guys think about you? And so there might be many things you see as normal that you're doing as this like performance to what other men will think. And that would be the stuff that you would start to make changes around, like start not to do. That is not so one, it is not a thing you control. Like you do not have mind control abilities, but then also like why are you spending time and energy on that? Um, yeah, why would that ever matter? And so you would start to make changes there and show the brain, hey, that does not matter. AB World, you said, I had a bug on my Instagram account where I can't see or discover people anymore. And I don't know if I should create a new account or not. And I've been ruminating so much about this for 2 months. Yeah, so right there, you can see the time and energy that gets sucked up by trying to fix these problems and things like that. And yeah, right there, like setting a time limit. There's no right answer. The issue, and this goes for a lot of things, where there's not a right answer. The issue is just that we are then just wasting all of our time and energy on this brain stuff. It's just saying, look, there's no right answer, so I'm going to choose some criteria to decide how I decide, and we're going to decide in 15 minutes and just do it. Because otherwise, I'm going to spend months of time and energy on this, and that's just not useful to me. Andy, thanks so much for sharing gift memberships to the membership channel with everybody. I really appreciate it. Andy shared 5 memberships there. Thank you. Everybody who just joined the membership channel, welcome. The way the membership channel is set up, there's, yeah, so the first tier of membership is brain level. And so there's a kind of text post, like you'll see there's a post I shared yesterday on magical thinking patterns and superstitions. And so why do we cut out magical thinking patterns? And then the next tier is the donut tier. And so there are videos. And then the next tier is the alpaca tier. And so at alpaca tier, you can just send me questions or topics, and I make videos just on those topics for you. So welcome to members. Yeah, in the next couple days we're going to. So one of the topics I brought up in the videos for the donut members we were talking over the holidays about, for instance, how being around people that we may not see at every other time of the year, it can be difficult not to get wrapped up in other people's compulsions. And so we'll talk about that more because one of our members had a great question about exploring the other areas that come up. That comes up, and it's very true. When we're working on recovery, working, taking care of our mental health, it could be at work, at school, and even work where we might be kind of required to do a bunch of checking compulsions, and it might even be encouraged to get wrapped up in a lot of compulsions. Uh, or we just see a lot of people doing unhealthy compulsions at work or at school. And so we'll talk about navigating that. Because, yeah, that, especially when you're first making changes, oh, it's so easy to get or to have to struggle with that when you're around systems that are pushing you to do a lot of compulsions when you're trying to cut them out. So we'll be exploring that on the members channel this week. Philip said, did you also experience the hyper focus on your thoughts while recovering? Always monitoring, thinking about what is healthy to do in your head, etc. And tips on cutting out the compulsions on this one. Yeah, like I'd say that's the normal place where everybody begins because that's all. We've just been so in our heads. And so it's starting to set up very intentional exercises. Like one of the things I talk about in my book is expanding the bandwidth to our other senses. Because it's like we've given up all of our awareness bandwidth to thoughts and emotions and other brain stuff. And like we've squeezed out everything else. So yeah, meditation and mindfulness were really useful for exploring that. Because what we're doing when we sit down to meditate is we're putting all of the experiences on the same level. So I could have a thought right now, and I could have a physical sensation. I could hear something. I could also feel an emotion. I could feel, right, a physical sensation. I could smell something. And we're practicing starting to put them all on the same level. And then another area where that was really useful to explore was doing mindful walking very intentionally to practice giving my attention to things outside of me. Because in the past, I would go for a walk and just kind of tune out everything. I'd be up in my head, running through scenarios, making presentations, planning stuff. Right? It could be thinking about physical fitness, mental health things. And so, yeah, if we're spending time in our heads thinking about what our mental health plan is, we are not taking care of our mental health. So setting up some exercises where you can practice giving your attention to other senses rather than that hyper focus on the brain stuff, that can be just really useful to practice, and then you just get better and better at that. So yeah, if that gives you some ideas, run with it. But if you have more questions about that, or you want to talk about that on the members channel or something, we can definitely do that. The Coco Mango, you're welcome. Oh, Sai, thank you so much for the support. Thanks for stopping by. Henry, welcome. Oh, Osidi Swami, Jonas, welcome. Happy New Year to you too. I hope everything is well in Finland. Henry said, question. I do a lot of compulsions around relationships with my significant other. I find myself always feeling like it's not enough and looking for validation outside of it. What do you recommend? So I'd be curious. So you see the compulsions, and so I wouldn't have a recommendation just based on what you shared there. What I'd be curious about is, so what happens if you cut out the compulsions? And so you see the urge to get validation. So there's like a thing you're trying to get there. So why do you want to get that? What's that? What can you do if you got that? So if we said there was a way to get 101% validation and reassurance, then what? What's the point of that? Uh, that can help us look at what is it we're afraid of losing, but also what is it, like in the compulsion pattern, we'll often believe I need to get 100% clean and then I can go and do this. The whatever thing it is that we want to do, it can be useful to just go and do that because the brain isn't going to let us have that 101% validation. It's not even going to allow 98% validation. Deb, Happy New Year. Oh, thank you. I hope, yeah, your practice in the year ahead is easy and enjoyable. Thank you for stopping by. It's great to see you. Henry Shangmo here said, maybe I want to better my relationship because I find myself looking for my relation needs in other ways I don't like. Yeah, and so yeah, there you see that you don't like that way of chasing them. So yeah, what if you didn't do that? Then what happens? Oh, Mr. Gatsby, thank you. Nate said, I just want to say thanks again. I got a hiccup in my recovery. It was about my sexuality and how I thought it changed and it scared me. But I come to find out it was my brain trying to loop me again. Hey, Nate, that's great you caught it. The brain, so good at that. Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, the brain is so funny, and maybe sometimes we can get into just and I know I do like I talk about firing the brain, and the brain is not in the top 10 organs, and that's all true. It is not, but it's still a fun organ, and it cares. Like, so often when it throws up a fear, or it throws up, it may not be a fear, it may be like a urge to get something, like we were talking at the very beginning about kind of chasing treasure. So yeah, like when the brain is pushing us in either direction, often in that we see what we care about, and that is something we can celebrate. So I like to describe clapping for my brain sometimes, because yeah, the brain will throw up something that we might find shocking or we might latch onto, and we can see though underneath that it is just pointing at something we care, which is just going like there's a thing here we want to control because this matters. As well as being able to say, brain, you're so clever, great. You can see that's a thing that I care about. Yeah, I do care about it. I don't have to get wrapped up in reacting to what you're throwing up. You're making a valid point. I care about that thing. And so I'm going to go and do actions, right, in the present. I'm going to keep success close. I'm going to practice giving time and energy to those things I care about today because I do care about them. But I don't have to get wrapped up in the controlling that my brain wants me to get wrapped up in. So yeah, enjoy that. We learn a lot about the brain, and then we just get better and better at handling it. Abid said, my therapist says to just ignore OCD. Is that helpful? Yeah, so I think there's probably an element of needing to get into the specifics of what's it mean to ignore OCD. And yeah, maybe I'll just share at that. If you want to share some more specifics, we can definitely get into that. But yeah, we don't. I don't know if you caught it earlier. I was talking about the air conditioner robot that could attack me at any moment. And so that would be an example of, yeah, where some people would say, oh, like you're ignoring it. But in reality, we're just doing actions we value. OCD is not the thing. OCD is how we interact with it. So OCD, because sometimes people will ask like, oh, is it possible to recover? And then if you ask them, what does recovery mean to you? They'll say, well, I don't want to have these like intrusive thoughts anymore. I don't want to have anxiety anymore. And that like those are not OCD. OCD is a thought popping up and us going, this is important. I've got to do something about this. How can I fix this? And spending time and energy on it. But that's something we do. It is 100% possible to leave that behind. There is no reason we have to struggle with that anymore. And it is the source of the struggle, how we interact with the experience. And so when somebody's referring to ignoring OCD, that's something you're actually really good at already. When you go outside today and you walk past a tree and you do not stop and find the leaf on the tree that has died and shriveled up, are you ignoring the leaf? Are you ignoring the fact that it died? Or are you just going to live your life? Right? And so even if you're still basing the actions around like ignoring the leaf, the dead leaf is still in charge. And so when we're talking about ignoring OCD, what we're really talking about there is living our lives. If I'm walking to the donut shop, I am going to walk to the donut shop. I'm not ignoring the trash on the street. I'm not ignoring the dog shit on the street. I'm not ignoring the dead leaf on the tree. I'm not ignoring a swear word that I hear somebody shout on the street. I'm not ignoring the traffic jam. I'm not all there's so many wrong things that we could stop and get angry at and try to control with compulsions. But actually we're not ignoring them. We're just going to live our lives. And so yeah, that is really useful. We can drop all of that controlling and fixing around the like wrong brain stuff. And that's super beneficial. Oh, Andy, I think, yeah, I think you maybe I'm not sure. And it's giving me a message about you joining the brain membership level, I think. So thank you. Welcome. Jeff. Yeah. So do you have any tips for being consistent with following your values? Absolutely. This is a great area to explore. Part of it is just asking that question. Like starting out a week, something I would look at and still enjoy doing frequently is looking at the week ahead and asking, well, how am I going to make it easy to do the actions I value this week? When we look at supports for doing actions we value, sometimes we'll start to see that those supports are the things to really, really protect. So coming up, this is a great moment to mention, coming up on January 17th, I'm doing another version of the Garden of You workshop. It is a great workshop for exploring the kinds of, well, for exploring what we want to grow in the year ahead, and then what are the actions to grow that, and what are the supports to follow through on that. And something I always emphasize as we get to the end of the workshop, because as we're kind of moving into the final exercises, we're really looking at those supports, is that people start to notice the supports that are going to help them sustain the valued actions are actually the most important things to emphasize. Because we'll see that if we really put a lot of time and energy into the supports, the valued actions will be so much easier or even just naturally happen. They'll be the only option. So with whatever valued actions you're looking at there that you want to sustain, I'd be really curious about what supports would help you sustain them. And what if you started to see the supports as the most important thing? And then the valued actions are just a thing you can do because you protect the support. So one of the simple ways, and I think even somebody posted this in the chat when we were talking about goals earlier. Somebody mentioned about like cooking food and like cooking healthy food for themselves. When somebody says like, "Oh, I want to eat like cook more food at home," one of the really beneficial supports is getting groceries. It's really difficult to cook food when there's no food at home, but we'll often talk about the goal as being cooking food. The support, you say, is getting groceries. I would emphasize the groceries over the cooking food. If you start to get the groceries to make the meals during the week and you protect that grocery time, you start telling people, oh, I can't go to that event because I'm going to the grocery store then. You don't let it get moved. Because in the past, maybe we were like, oh, I was going to go to the grocery store right now, but there's this other thing. I'll just go do that. I can always do the grocery store later. And then we don't do it. So whatever the support would be for the valued action, what if the support was the most important thing in your life? Pepsi said Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you too. How would I go about tackling judgment OCD? Constantly worrying what others might think of me and trying to fix it. It's really common, right? I don't know if you caught it. We were talking about even other themes, right? What people would call like different themes of OCD often come back to some fear of being judged by others. So the thing we always look at there is what are all of the different things I do to control that? And then that becomes the hierarchy that we'd explore in an ERP practice. And then you start to cut them out. So even, for example, one of the ones that I noticed is that I would reread and rewrite and reread and rewrite emails and text messages because I was, I'd be thinking, well, what is the person going to think about this and what about this and what are they going to think about this? And so cutting out a compulsion like that was an exercise I worked on, where I practiced writing things once, not rereading them, and hitting send. And then the brain, of course, gets super upset about that. It's like you just sent something terrible. You need to go back and check that email and make sure you didn't say something wrong because then you'd have to write it, apologize quickly. And yeah, the brain gets really upset. And that gives us the opportunity to just practice noticing that we care about that. Saying, oh, yeah, I really care about other people. I don't want to mess up these relationships I have with other people. But I'm not going to do the compulsions around that right now. Instead, I'm going to do an action to actually build relationships, to practice giving care to the relationships in my life. And so identifying the things you do to control judgment, setting up exercises to cut out those practices. Then, when the brain freaks out about that, identifying valued actions you want to do to actually build relationships rather than taking that reactive, like controlling judgment approach. So, what do you actually want to do to practice growing relationships in your life? And then to enjoy the actions of growing that garden of relationships. So, Henry, you mentioned we were asking about relationships and what's the reason for like, what are we trying to get? So, you mentioned there, I feel like I'm not getting the love that I want. I feel alone at times, even though I'm in a relationship. So, that's when I'll seek outside forms of filling the void that my relationship isn't enough. Yeah. So, this is one of the reasons it's useful to look at what we're trying to get. Because remember, whatever we're trying to get, the brain is always going to make it not enough. Finding ways to like kind of objectively look at what it means to have love in your relationship. So, giving love to the relationship, is that happening with your partner, but also with you? So, if we take that switch from getting to giving, so are you giving the things you want to give to the relationship? Is the relationship doing the things that you want to do in a relationship? But watch out for checking to get a feeling because the brain's always going to tell you you're not getting enough of that feeling. So, what are the objective ways that you can look at? Is the relationship growing in the way you want it to grow? Is it going where you want it to go? And things like that. If you're talking with your partner, also watch out for just like if we said to a partner, I'm like really uncertain and I need you to give me reassurance. There would never be enough reassurance that they could give you because the brain is always going to say it's not enough, right? If we said, I need my partner to make me feel clean, you're never going to feel clean enough. So, what is it that you want to do in a relationship? And can you share that with your partner? Not around checking for some kind of feeling, but what is it objectively? What are the real things that you want to do in a relationship? Yeah. Are you having conversations about that? Are those things that you can do together? And then, yeah, and I see you wrote here, I guess it feels like I'm trying to control my future if the relationship or of the relationship because I'm always analyzing it and not feeling like it's good enough. Yeah, if you were always, right, just like if we were always checking if something is clean and analyzing it, you're just always going to come up with reasons why it's wrong. And so starting to find ways to actually look at what is it that's important in a relationship and what is it you're going to do, but having ways to identify that separate from like we're just going to sit and analyze it until we get a feeling. Now, because then the brain's never going to let you have that feeling. Made you look. I said, what is your opinion on nutrition and OCD? Do you pay much attention to what you eat? I like to enjoy food, but if you mean pay attention to what I eat by like have a whole bunch of like eating compulsions and checking for certainty and control, then yeah, no, no, that is most of the time when I see people talking about nutrition and OCD, they're just taking a whole bunch of like eating disorder compulsions and going like pretending that there's some kind of magical thinking control stuff. And so I'd really watch out for that. Absolutely, taking care of and nourishing ourselves can be really valuable. So when I'm writing about nutrition, I'll always talk about fueling stuff that we want to do. Watch out for anything that is about trying to control an unwanted experience or especially control our bodies. Because then you're just going to get back into the judging and checking and controlling. Like, oh, this is the thing I've got to fix, and I'm going to use nutrition as this like kind of magical system that will control the thing, and you'll find that it won't. And then you have to do more and more and more time and energy into finding this like magical like nutrition control thing. So yeah, really, really watch out for that. Because yeah, just like if somebody said like, oh, like I eat this food, and then because I'm eating this food, I'm not going to have like thoughts and feelings anymore. Uh, but because the issue is not the thoughts and feelings, the issue is how we interact with them. And so, of course, like lots of things, when somebody has like a magical solution, uh, that can sound really appealing. At the same time, absolutely, how we eat and fuel ourselves does affect us. No question about it. So it's useful to look at what is it we want to do and what is going to fuel doing those actions we value. And then we'll just celebrate eating food. I enjoyed on the Mental Fitness Discord server, which there is a link in the description down below. Uh, I shared my New Year's breakfast the other day. I had such a delicious New Year's breakfast. I went to this restaurant a year ago and for New Year's, I was there for New Year's and I didn't have this particular dish, but then I saw other people eating this dish. And so I went back again this year for my New Year's breakfast with a friend of mine. And we had this amazing French toast. And we see it like it's to call it just French toast is not to do it justice. That's why I mentioned the Mental Fitness Discord server has a photo of it. It's like a block of cinnamony, sugary French toast, and then just covered in beautiful fruit, and then ice cream on top of that. Wonderful breakfast to start the new year. Philip, yeah, you said I struggle a lot with mindfulness. I think I don't really understand how to approach it, how to interact with brain stuff while mindfully doing things. For example, if I watch something or make the dishes, and that's just it. You see that that's why, like we were talking about with the bandwidth. So if I'm washing the dishes, that's the thing I'm doing. So why would I need to give any time and energy to like thoughts or stuff in my head? We're just washing the dishes right now. One of the ways you could think of mindfulness is that we're doing the thing we're doing. There is a free course on the toolkit site, the Basics of Being course. And one of the first exercises I explore in that is just moving attention around. And that is one way that I would describe the practice of meditation. We're not putting any sense in any kind of special position. Nothing is on a pedestal. When we sit down to meditate, when we practice mindfulness, we are choosing how we give our attention. And that is one of the key reasons the skill is so beneficial. Because in the past, we would just automatically give our attention to whatever thing popped up in our heads. And we've gotten accustomed to that, kind of tuning out the world, tuning out the present, and going into the time traveling and what's in our head. And so as we start to practice it, we're learning how to see all of these different options or all of these different senses on the same level. And we can choose what we give our attention to. And so if we're washing dishes, and so yeah, like this would be a thing I practice, or like I was mentioning, walking. If I'm walking, yeah, I'm not walking and thinking. Let's just walk. And of course, the brain will throw up stuff. Just like I might hear something, I might see something, I might smell something. It's okay. Like those can all be there. And of course, I might notice them in my senses. Just like I might suddenly notice a rock in my shoe, or I'll hear a siren go by. Yeah, that's totally okay. They're all part of my experience. And what do I want to choose to give my attention to? And that's what we're practicing. And at first, that's very difficult. When I would go, like as a mindful walking exercise, when I used to do this, I would pick an object ahead of me and I would practice kind of breathing in and out of the object. And I would use that to practice kind of holding my attention there. But inevitably, something would wander off. And so I would kind of know how I was doing with my practice by whether or not I could like walk to the end of the block, resting my attention on the stop sign or the tree or whatever. But who knows? Maybe I would go out and it would just I'd get one step and then I'd start planning something. I'd get another step and then I'd be worrying about something, and just bringing it back to that object. Because I'm not giving my attention to that right now. I'm giving my attention to that tree at the end of the block. It is a skill like any other skill, and it's totally natural that it's challenging at first. But yeah, setting up some exercises like that, or it might be yeah, doing the dishes and just doing the dishes, can be really fun. Oh, Andy, thank you so much for sharing another gift membership. I really appreciate that. I think Pepsi joined. So Pepsi, welcome to the membership channel. Mm. Dylan, thank you so much for sharing the Garden of You workshop link. Yeah, I didn't have it in the description. Thank you for catching that. I really appreciate it. Oh, and thank you for the shout out and review. I think it's like ITZDS. You said, I have OCD from 5 years and it is peak right now. I have puro and hard to be positive and not think about the thoughts. That is really, really natural at first, right? The thoughts, just as like I was talking about there with Philip, yeah, like the thoughts can be just so loud and it seems so natural to just give all of our attention to them. That is usually where we start. But yeah, it's a great spot to start learning new skills. Start learning different ways of interacting with the thoughts. One of the things I always suggest people if you're starting out on skills, starting out on cutting out compulsions, and you think you have Puro, I'd really expand the how you're defining Puro. And so you might already be defining it that way, but there are definitely going to be real changes, physical changes outside of your head as well. Absolutely, it's useful to cut out the mental compulsions, but there are going to be physical compulsions as well. Because things like avoidance, like if we're avoiding something because of the thoughts, that's a physical compulsion. And so starting to cut those out while bringing the thoughts along can be a useful part of the journey as you're getting started. Pom Pom Kitty, I hope you're having a great New Year too. It's great to see you. Jeff, so what kind of supports would you recommend for helping to not check things over and over again online, especially when your job requires working on a computer frequently? Yeah, I used to have sticky notes. So I'd put sticky notes on the computer that would tell me what to do. So tell me the valued action to do instead of checking. But also, it's just going to be about practicing and building up the skill. So one of the things, so an example of this that I often recommend to people, if they're starting to work on their own, it can be very difficult not to just do lots of compulsions. So what I suggest to people at first is finding ways that you can do some work off of the computer. And even as part of that work you're doing off the computer, whether you do it just on your desk beside the computer or you go to another room, is that you write out things, and you might even write out something that you need to do on the computer. So you go for however long, maybe you go 30 minutes, you're doing stuff on paper, but one of the things you're going to do on that paper is the next task that you'll do on your computer. And then when you go back to your computer, you do the task as you've written it out and practice not checking stuff. So not doing the checking compulsions. So you do some work at your computer or you do something on your phone, on a piece of technology, and you do it in the way that you want to do it. And then when you're done, step up and walk away again. And then what we do over time, so this is a kind of workout plan that I give, say if I was working with a client, over time we would just gradually build up how long they spend on their computer, not doing the checking compulsions. And the brain just starts to learn. Because right now, if we just sit at a computer and we're so used to checking, it's just a thing we're gonna do as a reflex. And so we have to teach the brain that we can sit down, we can set intentions around what we want to do on this piece of technology. We're gonna do them. We're not gonna do the checking, and then we're going to move on to the next thing. And then it just starts to learn, oh, this is a piece of technology we use for this. It's not where we do these compulsions. And then the pressure starts to lessen. But even if it did pop up, it's still up to us not to do the compulsion. So we've got to have that valued action identified. So we do that instead. And we're just building that up. Like that's a really clear example of how it's like mental fitness. We need to learn how to have that urge to do the checking compulsion and not do it. And so the reason we do it in small chunks is, yeah, just like a physical fitness exercise plan, you got to build that up over time. And we want to build it up successfully so you're not constantly in a battle with yourself. So, yeah, enjoy maybe spending some time at your computer, Jeff, just teaching the brain how you can actually use it. Blooper 785, Happy New Year. Thanks for dropping by. Andy, you said, how do you explain dopamine deficiency to a non-neurodivergent? So I'd watch out though for like I wouldn't explain it to them because like the term dopamine deficiency just gets it's become just like a social media like a buzzword that means all sorts of different things in different situations. And so yeah, I don't find it's useful to get caught up in trying to like define those terms or even use them. And instead I'd use just like really practical things. And so really looking at, well, what's that mean? And why would you need to explain that to somebody? Because yeah, the term, there's so much room there for like just misunderstanding. So I always try to, base any explanation, even if it's like you're trying to explain something because of something, a support that's going to be useful to you, then starting with the like really concrete support that's going to be useful. Because yeah, the other person they're probably not going to understand the term, and then also they're going to see all sorts of if they do learn a term like that, they're just going to see all sorts of stuff online, like on social media, that is totally different than how it was explained, and they're going to be they're so confused, but they'll probably also maybe have a lot of ideas that you wouldn't have wanted them to have. And so, yeah, always keeping things in really concrete, real examples. If we want supports with something, what is the support? Because then people can clearly see how to help us. Whereas if we throw out a term, people are just going to be really uncertain and they're not going to know what kind of support would be useful. Well, made you look. Welcome to the membership channel. Thanks for joining. Bluebird said, I've been reading You Are Not a Rock and practicing some of the exercises too. But lately I've fallen off the wagon. And even though I know what I have to do, I find it more scary than bad things will happen if I do. I don't know. Yeah. In the chat, so you described falling off the wagon, and then it looks like you fell off the wagon and some letters like tumbled out of your pockets. Yeah, it happens all the time. If you look near the back of You Are Not a Rock, there is the path exercise. I can't remember exactly which chapter it's in right now, but near the back, in the latter chapters, there's the path tool, right? And so one with three columns, right? What's on the path, what's just off the path, and what's way off the path. And that what's just off the path column is something I found so useful. I credit understanding that with really helping me not relapse is because it tells us those kind of normal activities that sure we may see lots of other people do, but we learn, oh, if I start to do that, then I'm going to end up falling off the wagon and having all my letters tumble out of my pockets. So we make the middle column, that just off the path, as the area where we start to be quite unreasonable. And I mean unreasonable in that, like sticking to my values, unreasonable, where we might say, oh, this is not a big deal and I don't feel anxious and there's not a problem. Yep. And I'm not going to go further because we don't need to wait to fall off the wagon. We don't need to wait to go off the path. We don't need to wait for a problem to do the actions that are actually useful to us and support us. So yeah, when you see that though, that's so useful. We start to learn about what is just off the path. So it's probably a great time maybe to check out that exercise and really consider what are the actions that seem normal, but you're starting to recognize are going to take you back into compulsions you don't want to be doing. And yeah, exactly. The French toast was amazing. Even the ice cream. I'm in Mexico right now, and Mexico just has such a phenomenal food culture. There's so much diversity in the food, so much sophistication in the flavors and different techniques. It's in the world absolutely incredible and mind blowing and so delicious. Oh, Natalie, thank you so much for stopping by and the kind words. I hope you're having a great New Year. Carrie said, do you have any advice for sensory motor OCD? I'm always super aware of my fingers and the way I hold things, and I can't shake off this awareness. I can't immerse myself in anything and just do that. Is with any of the unwanted experiences we'll get caught up in compulsions in, it can really help to see that the trying to shake it off is going to be the compulsion. So take what you wrote there and imagine somebody was just struggling with something like classic contamination OCD, and they said to you, like no matter what I do, I can't shake off this contaminated feeling. I keep trying to clean it off and it will not go. You see how that's the thing that's gonna keep it. And so at first, it is going to involve uh, letting it be there. So one of the things that I'd be curious about there is, like I'd ask somebody, you don't have to answer this now, or you can explore this. Why do you want to shake it off? What are you afraid it's going to interfere with? Or what are you afraid holding things wrong is going to interfere with. And that can be the area that can be valuable to explore and do some work in. Oh, Dylan, thank you. Thank you for testing out some things there. Natalie said, I started doing the exercises in your first book, and it's amazing. Oh, thank you. But I feel so lost sometimes as to who I am. I don't even think I was doing compulsions that much. But now I realize I basically drifted through every single day, going from one compulsion to the next, especially checking, controlling, researching, a lot of internet stuff. It feels so confusing finding out what kind of person I am without the compulsions, including stuff from many years ago. Do you have any advice? I find that's great. It's one of the reasons. I think this illustration is in the book. It's the I feel because I think it's an illustration I'd used before. It might not be in the book. There's an illustration I often show of two people, the same person, pulling at either ends of a rope in opposite directions. And I share that because the things that we were always doing in the past that we thought were us, that we thought was the direction we want to go in, was actually like the opposite direction of what would be useful to us and what would actually take us where we want to go in life. So we usually begin working on mental health changes, on learning new skills when we recognize that the actions we're doing that we've thought of as ourselves are not taking us where we want to go. And so much of this work is about starting to align how we spend our time and energy, the actions we do inside and outside of our heads, with who we really are and where we really want to go. And this comes up a lot. So I always emphasize to people that if you were doing things in the past that you thought were part of you, but they did not take you to a place you want to be in life, then those actions were not you. And you can see that now. And that's amazing. That is wonderful. It's so useful when we recognize that how we're spending our time and energy is taking us to a place that we cannot thrive in, that we will not enjoy. And so now we get to make those changes. And yeah, that's weird at first. It's weird to start doing those different actions, and we'll probably feel like we're faking it or they're wrong at first. But if they're taking us where we want to go, then it's going to be useful to us to explore incorporating those actions into our lives. Because we can see, oh, like maybe this is actually part of who I am. Maybe my idea of myself can use some updating. That was actually in the February in the planner here. I know this was just something I even have a note to fill it just as changes right there, but is one of the key things. So I put here on February 9th, be myself while understanding that I change. And then the kind of the rest of the days right around that period of time are about exploring this recognition that maybe a lot of the stuff we thought about ourselves, we picked up from all sorts of places, from people around us, from the world around us, but isn't actually useful to us. And so that's amazing to explore. Some of the exercises, so because you've got the book, some of the exercises around values are really helpful with this, starting to consider, well, what is actually important to me? And there's also the beliefs exercise in closer to the back of the book, laying out some of those beliefs, even just considering that we have beliefs about what we should do in the world, how we should do it, who we are. Starting to consider that maybe some of those beliefs aren't helpful to us is just a phenomenal first step. That we can have some different beliefs. So if you started to look at where you want to go in life and the things you want to do, and you ask, well, what are the beliefs that would be useful to that? What are the actions that would be useful to that? Yeah, why does that seem Like, what are the beliefs or assumptions we have that make those actions seem like, oh, not something I would do? Uh, Maybe that's the stuff that's open for some, yeah, exploration and change. So yeah, I really enjoy that. If you have any questions as you're exploring that, there is also a values course on the Toolkit Store website that I made because sometimes we want to dig in even more to what's actually important to us. And so there are some exercises there. Like there's a fun exercise I really like there. You'll see there's a PDF of just images. And so you print out the images and then you just sort them into piles and you tell a story. And so a lot of the images are just kind of random stuff. But what we have to do in the exercise is tell a story why that's part of our lives or not part of our lives, or like part of us or not part of us. And just that process of starting to tell stories to articulate why we believe something is not part of our life or something is part of our life. Yeah, it's just something we often have never done. And yeah, it brings up interesting ideas when we start to challenge some of our previous assumptions. Yeah. So I think that you're exploring this at all is fantastic. Oh, Dylan, I see your message there about not being able to gift memberships. Yeah, I don't know what would cause that. Thank you for thinking of it. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think Natalie, I see what you mentioned there about self-help content. That was also something I was exploring in the planner. That I don't know if you caught it. I shared it at the beginning. That we don't have to know because we explore. Like we're going to explore life and find out what really connects with us and what we really enjoy. And we can't do that from spending hours on self-help stuff before living life. We do it through living life and being curious about it. So yeah, enjoy being curious uh, about yeah what helps you thrive. Lokesh said, solving thoughts in mind is a sign of compulsion. Please explain. It is a compulsion. Thoughts are just things we experience. They are not a thing, they are not a problem to fix. They are not a thing to solve. They can just be there. And so, yeah, if we're going into our heads and we're like, oh, I need to fix this thought, that is the compulsion, not just a sign of one, but very much is a compulsion. Lactogen said, in your opinion, after we have cut out compulsions and are working towards our values while seeing a therapist, what should a good therapist work on with us to sustain progress, and where should we begin to go off on our own? Yeah, it's a great question because it gets at some challenges with the mental health care system. And you may have heard me talk before about how it's an illness first system or a problem focused system. And that's an issue because in the past, the idea was that a therapist was fixing a problem and it had to be a clinical problem, right? There had to be a diagnosis. And that created issues because that meant you only got support if you had a problem. So it'd be like if we didn't have personal fitness trainers, we only had physiotherapists. So like go exercise however you want. When you get injured, come back. And that's not useful because we need to sustain the progress. But the reason I bring this up is then because something I'll see a lot is that depending on where a therapist works and any kind of guidelines or restrictions around what they do, they may not be able to work with somebody unless they have a clinical diagnosable issue. The problem with that is that then yeah we're not then sustaining the practice, we're not continuing on, and so sometimes uh, or actually, what I'll say is like, this will be, I would say, a question you'll need to bring up with your therapist and a discussion you'll need to have together to also find out uh, if they're able to explore that what's sometimes now being called positive psychology, or like I'll just describe as mental fitness. So there is a growing awareness of this and practice in psychology circles, but I would say it can still be kind of limited, where the idea was it was about fixing problems, so it doesn't continue when there's no problem. It is great to continue having support and grow things rather than making it problem focused. If your therapist can continue, then there's always more skills to build and explore. What I'll often bring up with coaching clients, and what we'll often explore when we're no longer kind of tackling problems, is the big things in life that they want to grow and build. And so that will involve sometimes a different skill set. One advantage that I'll often have when we're working together is I used to work as a business consultant. And so we will, it has often been the case that we'll transition with clients who are either running their own businesses or work in management at a business, that will transition to looking at how do we bring a values-based approach into your creative realm, your business that you're running or that you're growing, etc. And then we look at how do we bring these skills into other areas of life. Or we'll really go after some kind of what I'll call a mental fitness hobby. And so whether we're really getting into meditation skills, we're really exploring like relationships, we're exploring how to build community in a way that's about setting values, welcoming uncertainty, giving instead of getting. So there are many opportunities to continue growing the skills and taking on challenges. Having that conversation with your therapist will be a great place to start and say, yeah, look, like I don't have to keep going after a problem. I want to grow some things. How can we work together on growing those and still pushing into uncertainties and difficult experiences? So enjoy that. Oh, and then actually, like Tojan, I see down below you shared, I find myself dependent on a therapist and I find I can't trust myself through certain crises. How do we sustain mental fitness without a therapist, and how do we trust ourselves to handle it? So that's a great thing to bring up with your therapist. Something I always emphasize to coaching clients is that my goal is that they do not need me anymore. Like my goal is that we're working on skills each week, so they are learning how to be their own coach. And like there shouldn't be a sense of, oh, like I can't do this unless I check with somebody first. And so that's a great opportunity to talk about those skills, where because it doesn't even necessarily have to be about I trust myself to do this, but actually I have a framework to do this. So yeah, I'm super uncertain right now. I don't know if I can handle this, but here are the skills I'm going to practice as I navigate this and I learn about this. And I'm going to give myself the opportunity to learn about it. So that can be a really useful thing to talk about with your therapist. What would set you up so that you can have an experience like, wow, I'm having a lot of emotions and thoughts around this experience, and I'm going to continue doing the actions I value, and I have these supports and frameworks in place so I can see what those actions are. When you are working on your own, yeah, it's still, yeah, there's going to be times where it's going to feel weird and scary. There's going to be times when you feel anxious, and that's okay, right? Because that is the skill we're working on. We're having experiences while doing more of what we value in life. So that really is the thing to have. It's okay to have that experience and learn. You'll try things, and some of them won't work. And then you'll learn from that, and you'll try some more things. Naz Music, he said, if a person, a romantic person, left me for a very silly reason, I tried everything to get in contact, but I couldn't. Now I have to move on without anything. How do I handle this difficult situation and move on with my life? Yeah, I'd watch out for what do you mean by move on without anything? Wait, do you mean they emptied your bank account? and they took something from you, like I don't know, they took organs from you that they're going to sell on the organ market. Yeah, what do you mean you have not, like, I'm moving on without anything. I would bet you're moving on with yeah, you. And that's a wonderful thing to move on with. So actually right now judging it as this like difficult situation and this problem and so on. What yeah, what would be the reason for adding all of those meanings and judgments to it? If you want to explore relationships with people, you can explore relationships with people. And so even the idea of like, ah, I've got to move on, I'd watch out for that as though you're going on dates in relation to a relationship you left. Because, then we get into like those memes where you see somebody saying like, oh, I went on a first date and they talked so much about their ex that I miss their ex too. So just watch out for that. When you go on dates and build relationships, it's not in relation to something or as a reaction to something that happened in the past. In the present, you can go on dates and that can just be about giving and sharing with the person you're going on a date with or that you want to explore. And so like dropping some of that pressure and that extra stuff on it. When somebody starts going on dates, especially if they want to explore dating without maybe like a lot of compulsions they've done in the past, one thing I always suggest to them first is not even to approach it as like dating, but just meeting new people. So we're also not getting caught up in judging and comparing, to like a past relationship or something like that. And then it also creates opportunity to be more open just to exploring relationships differently. Saying, hey, I am just going to meet new people right now. And then when the brain is like, oh, but what about this or what about that? And you're like, I don't know about comparing it to some other person or about judging it around these things. I am just meeting new people right now. Was that a new person? It was a new person. Then it was successful. Oh, Natalie, thank you. It's an honor to be part of your adventures. Well, he said here, I had the greatest past week of my life and the past 3 years of OCD, and it's just confusing coming home and facing daily life again. But it's such a blessing, and I'm so thankful. Yeah, letting that be okay, right? There will 100% be so many like natural kind of waves to ourselves and to our lives. And we don't have to like try to hold it and make it kind of certain or static. So yeah, enjoy those changes. Well, Dylan, thank you so much for the donation with coffees and alpacas and donuts. May the new year have all of these. Made you look? Yeah, just have you heard of RFERP? Absolutely. Do you have like is there more you would like to ask? Kevin, it's good to see you. Happy New Year. To your advice on working on communication skills in an open plan office. Oh, I notice I'm very good at speaking one on one with someone, but when there's lots of people around listening, I struggle. Yeah, sometimes like, an open plan office people can find challenging. And when you notice that there's many people listening and you struggle with that, a question I would always ask there is, what are you trying to get right? Like when you say that it's difficult, yeah, why is it difficult? And that can just sometimes help us see an area then where there might be other opportunities throughout life to work on right skills and practices. And so it might involve doing things with lots of people listening, or whether it's asking for things when lots of people are listening. One exercise I practiced around stuff like this was I noticed if I went into a room of people, my tendency was to immediately like ask questions, like get other people to talk. And so one of the things I practiced was, say, yeah, if there was like a meeting or something and people were waiting around, was me practicing going in and telling a story So me saying, "Oh, like I want to tell you all about a thing that I did the other day," and so often I'd be like, there wasn't even something I did, so I'd just be like talking about something that I would worry wasn't interesting or something like that. But I noticed that I had gotten so comfortable as in this position of, oh, I'm going to listen to what others say, right? So that I don't say something boring, or I don't make a mistake, or I don't get judged. And so practicing starting the conversation and sharing things was a great like exercise to explore. For example, Lactosian, thank you for the wish of a new year with fun adventures. And we're coming to the end. And I see Naz, yeah, you shared without closure explanation. Yeah, without closure. That makes me think I should just like hit the end button on the live stream right now. Let's be like, there was no closure. We'll wrap up with this, and then we'll uh, finish the live stream, our first live stream of the year. So yeah, so those things right there, Naz Music, those are examples of like the trying to get things that, yeah, is just going to create more struggle and frustration. And that'll come up a lot. Like people will often talk about things like closure. It is the same as trying to like get some real clean feeling or something. And then of course, like even if, and you can even see the compulsion there earlier when you were like trying to contact them, even if you got some kind of contact, the brain isn't going to feel closure. What if it can be uncertain? There's nothing. I'll sometimes describe closure as like if we're hiking in the forest and then we trip on a tree and it hurts, like there's a tree root. Like what we do is like we'll think, oh, I've got to dig up the tree and then I've got to take it. I'm like dragging this whole tree around, massive tree, because I've got to find closure. I've got to resolve this painful thing that happened. But that just ends up being more painful. Us dragging around the tree to get closure interferes so much with our adventure through the wilderness. So, what if there's no explanation necessary? What if closure is a myth? If you want to have relationships and grow relationships, that's a thing you can do. But if you notice the brain telling you you have to be a time traveling janitor and go back into the past and clean something, or like dig up a tree and drag it around, uh, that's just going to be so much work. It's going to be exhausting. I have to eat so many donuts to be able to drag around a tree like that. So let's not do that. Everybody, we'll wrap up the live stream here. In the year ahead, it could be challenging. There could be many already. People may feel the first week of the year has been too much. There will be many things that happen. And so in the year ahead, whether it's many things that happen with our mental health or our physical health, many things that happen with the health of our communities or the world, let's keep that focus on the things we want to grow and build. It can be so easy to get wrapped up in just hating on stuff that's not good, hating on problems, trying to fix problems, and putting the problems at the focus of everything, at the center of everything. But then we're not giving time and energy to the things we want to grow. So let's put things at the center that we want to keep. And even when we're thinking of communities, when we're thinking of the world, yeah, even thinking of mental health, when we can demonstrate that path to where we want to go, we can demonstrate a path to doing things better, that gives people an opportunity to join us. But if we're just focused on the problem, we don't really have another path to share, another path and a place to go. So let's create a better path through the wilderness. Kevin, so to answer your question, this is on the talking with lots of people. I'm afraid of being alone. That's what I discovered during the 5 whys exercise. Yeah, so it can be fun to play around with exercises. One, sometimes to be alone, like if there's something where we feel like, oh, I can only do this with a person, with somebody else, like showing up alone was a great exercise. I explored around that. But also then doing things where we, like if there's a group of people, where we will risk the judgment. So we say, oh, I don't know. Yeah, like I don't know if I can tell this story now because if everybody judges it and I'll be alone. So then we go, okay, then I'm going to tell this, I'm going to share something. And maybe people will judge it and I'll be alone forever. So since people are here now, let's enjoy this last chance I'll ever have to talk to people. Because after I share, everybody's going to judge me and I'll be alone forever. And so finding those opportunities to touch that fear of being alone while living our lives, yeah, can be really effective. Absolutely, they are sweaty, anxious exercises. But then we show the brain, hey, yeah, maybe I could be alone, but I'm gonna do what I want to do. I'm gonna share. I'm gonna give what I want to give, and then the brain starts to learn that that's okay, and we can do that. So let's all go and do that. Let's all go and live our lives and create that path through the wilderness that goes to a place we want to celebrate, so other people can join us on the adventure. All right, thank you, everybody. Andy, thank you so much for gifting memberships. And Dylan, thank you so much for the donation. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful start to the year, everybody.